Hi, everybody, and welcome to today's Tip of the Week episode. I'm your host, Lori Palau. Welcome to our show. I am so excited that you're here. If you're just joining us for the first time, we are in the midst of a series, basically like a spring cleaning slash spring organizing series. So you don't need to listen to them in order, but I encourage you to go back and listen to the other episodes that we've had. We kicked off with medicine cabinets. We then did linen closets. Then we moved into the pantry. And today we're going big. We're going into the garage. Before we get into it, though, I do want to remind you guys that we have registration open for our Clutter Clinic Workshop Series. What that is, it's a live lunch and learn workshop taught by yours truly. So it's a way for you to connect up with me. I'm going to be sharing my best tips, tricks, strategies for tackling different areas of the home. And this is something that I have done for years, in-person workshops, but since we have so many of the people in our community that are spaced geographically all over the place, I wanted to figure out a way that we could affordably bring everybody together. And so we landed on doing this live Zoom group workshop. It's going to be fun. It's going to be interactive. There's going to be time for Q&A. And if you have to ditch out and you can't make the live recording, you will, of course, get access to a replay, but you do need to be registered for it. We have 6 different Clutter Clinic topics that we're going to be covering. So we're going to be spacing it out. They're going to be every Friday. Sorry, I lied. It's not going to be every Friday. It's going to be the first Friday of every month from April through October. And there's going to be a link below on our website, link below for you, or you can visit our website. It's simplybeorganized.com/workshop. We're kicking off April 4th with closets. Then May 2nd is going to be garages. June 6th is going to be kitchens. We're taking off July. We're coming back in August and we're going to do playrooms. September is going to be paper control and October 3rd is going to be digital. The beauty of this is you can pick and choose which ones resonate with you. So you don't have to attend all of them. You can attend one of them, 2 of them, or if you do decide that you want to do all of them, there's a bundle if you decide that you want to sign up for all of them. Again, the link is below. I'm giving you a little bit of a snippet through these tip of the week episodes, but they are just an appetizer. They're just a bite size. We are going to get into the nitty gritty during this series, talking about strategies, my favorite products, real life anecdotal stories. It's going to be great. The biggest feedback that we get when we do these clutter clinics is people leave there feeling empowered and motivated and really mentally prepared to go ahead and tackle the clutter, tackle those areas that have been holding them back. And so if that is you, definitely look and sign up, check it out, see what ones make sense, and would love to see you there. So anyway, we're going to go back to today, and we're going to be talking about 5 different kind of key areas within the garage. Now, I know not everybody has a garage where they live, but so you can apply some of this to areas that might make sense. So if you're storing some of these things, because we're not necessarily talking about car storage, we're talking about the things that we would store in a garage, which a lot of times people store them in an attic or in a basement. So some of these tips and strategies might be interchangeable. So, and other ones might not, but I definitely think that it's really, they're good reminders for people to think about where do you store these things, right? You're going to address if you have things like bikes and outdoor gear, having to pay some attention to it is really important. So one of the biggest pitfalls with garages specifically is it becomes a dumping ground very easily because it wears a lot of hats. So unlike a pantry that is primarily there for one purpose, a medicine cabinet has a very defined purpose. Your garages are a blank slate and a breeding ground for clutter because there's so many different categories that can be stored in a garage. So the very first thing that I ever do with people, and I advise you to do this at home, is figuring out what categories, or I like to call them zones, do you need to store in your garage. And this is going to be different for everybody. So some of the common areas that are going to be tools, sports gear. Some people store their seasonal decor out there. I know people that store backstock like pantry items, extra uh, cleaning supplies and paper towels. I have some clients that store the big bags of pet food out there. So think about how how do you like what do you use your garage for? And think about what are the different zones that you want to create if you don't already have them, or maybe if you do have them but they've just kind of like gotten a little blurred and blended together, and really be very clear and specific. Once you've defined what those zones are and kind of where in the garage that's going to live, like we want tools over here, gardening over here, sports over here, whatever that looks like. Once you map that out, then the next step is to start doing my ESP, the empty sort purge. It is then the purge, right? You're going to start emptying it. You're going to start doing your ESP and you're start going to get rid of the things that are broken, expired, no longer used. You're going to want to let it go. And when it comes to garages, I like to try to set aside time when you know the weather's going to be good. Obviously, when you're doing an indoor project, it's less important. But with garages, we want to have as much space that we can use to clean things out. Sometimes we need to hose things down. And we want to use maybe your driveway as a staging area or your lawn as a staging area. So having that space to kind of pull stuff out of the garage so that you can do your ESP, your empty sort purge, is super, super important. And then as you're going through that process, you're going to be reducing the volume of stuff. What you're also going to be hopefully recognizing is because you identified the zones first, these are the categories. Now you can also say, oh, I found something that is currently living in my garage that doesn't necessarily fit one of those categories. So maybe you're going to then relocate those items to another space. I had a client at one point that was storing their seasonal decor outside, but then they had some stuff in their basement. And so they kind of had stuff all over. And when we looked at all of the different categories that they had in their garage, I was like, you know what? If we don't have to clutter the garage with this extra category and we can find room for it somewhere else and we can kind of like steal some real estate from another part of the home, that will make your garage allow it to have a little bit more breathing room. And so just even being able to identify that when we figured out the zones, it helped us when we were doing our ESP, that anything that fell into that category that's no longer living in the garage, we just knew it wasn't coming back in. And that was just so freeing. So really it's important to do the zones first and then do the purge. So that's just my personal 2 cents. And then once you've done that, once you've created the zones, you've gone through, then it's a matter of how can we steal space in a garage? How can we make this garage work for us? And what happens with most of the people that wind up calling me, or the people that I find that are really struggling, is the first place they're going is on the floor. And maybe like 6 feet up. Maybe they're buying, and there's nothing wrong with buying like a pre-made storage rack from a big box store like Home Depot or Lowe's to like store your bins. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. However, garages oftentimes have a lot of what we call vertical space to work with. And if you can go up and put stuff up high that you use very infrequently, a lot of the categories that oftentimes live in garages are things that are accessed once or twice a year. They're not accessed often, or maybe they're just accessed for a specific event. For example, maybe you're not somebody that goes camping a lot, but you have some camping gear. Maybe you don't go skiing often, but you have some skiing gear, like things that require a lot of space. And what we don't want to do is take up that prime real estate, that stuff that's at eye level or the stuff that's on the floor, or the space that's on the floor to store that stuff that you're using once or twice a year. So really think vertical. What can we do? How can we go up? How can we use that untapped space that we know we're not going to be getting to? I don't expect you to get on a ladder every every day or every week, but if you're using something specifically seasonally and you can go up with those bins, by all means, let's use it. Um, Clear bins, always my favorite. I love clear bins. Again, I'm not suggesting if you have bins that are have, that are colored, or a lot of times people have like just all the black bins. There's nothing wrong with it. It just requires you, if it's not labeled, for you to take that extra step to lift up the lid to see what's in it. Whereas if you have a clear bin, you can oftentimes be like, oh, that's Christmas, or oh, that's camping, or fill in the blank. So I love having that clear bin because it just allows you to remove one step of the process. And anytime you can eliminate a step, that's good in my book. The other thing is having different size bins for different things. You don't necessarily want to have a big jumbo Sterilite bin to store extra batteries or light bulbs. You want to have something that is going to be more size appropriate to the scale of what it is that you're going to be storing. And so having those different types of bins, again, you can use inexpensive things like clear shoe boxes that are waterproof and weather tight, that are great. And if you have a cabinet, like maybe you have like one of those like locker cabinets, it's great to store that kind of stuff. Having some sort of corralling of like items, especially things like cleaning supplies. I think of like automotive, lawn and garden, any type of like household. A lot of times I keep stuff in the garage like extra caulk and spackle, things like that. All those like little tubes and containers, corralling all of those things in a bin together not only gives the appearance of it being organized, but it allows you to access them a lot more easily than just having everything just loosey goosey on a shelf. So just containing that and corralling it into like with like just like you would do in a kitchen, right? You would do it in a, in your kitchen pantry. You would put like all of your pastas in one thing or your cereals in one thing. You want to do the same thing in your garage. And then when it comes to your bigger things like bikes, and maybe you have a lawnmower or weed whacker, you want to check and make sure that all your tires are blown up, that you've got, if you need gas for your, for your mower, that you have that on hand. If you need to charge a battery for like your blower or whatever, you want to make sure that your batteries are charged. You want to just kind of do that maintenance check on all of those things. I know a lot of times the air will just deflate if you've got balls and stuff, basketballs, soccer balls, football, whatever it is, out in the garage. You want to make sure that you just pump those up so that the kids, when they are ready to play, they have that there. And you want to make sure that their stuff is accessible for them. I always tell parents, you want to empower and encourage your kids to be as independent as they can be age appropriately, so that they don't have to ask you every single time to get something. Obviously, if there's certain things that you want to be in the know, depending on their age, or that you want to have that, kind of that line before they go in and get it, I totally understand it. But every time the kid wants their bike, if, you know, I always try to figure out, how can we make this easier? How can we get a bike rack that's easy for them to get up and down? There's something to be said for just that, no pun intended or pun intended, that low hanging fruit of making stuff accessible, especially for our little ones at home who might be using the garage for their stuff. So that's it. Those are kind of like my big categories. Obviously, we're going to go in a lot deeper in Clutter Clinic garages, but I just wanted to, for this tip of the week, which went longer than I anticipated, just kind of cover those spaces. So thanks so much, everybody. And I'll be back next week with another episode. Until then, bye, plow. Peace out.